What the heck is up with the Star Wars RPG dice? You probably saw this giant mess over here and you're wondering, how do I use these dice? When do I use these dice? What do any of the symbols mean? What happened to the numbers? Now all those are very good questions and we're going to answer them today, all in this video, so let's get to it. Welcome to video 2 of our Star Wars RPG Beginner's Guide series, where we're going to go through the entire core rulebook section by section, explaining all of the core rules needed to actually start playing. The goal of this series is to break down these rules and make them as easy as possible to understand in the quickest amount of time, so that way you can just start playing. Whenever the player character wants to do something that has a chance of failing, they will roll their dice in what is called a check. This is just checking to see if you're successful at the task you're trying to do. GMs, alternatively, will roll for their NPCs when those NPCs try to do actions that impede or help the PCs. Now, if you look at your character sheet, you should see a bunch of different skills listed, with categories like general skills, combat skills, and knowledge skills. And within each of these, there's a wide variety ranging from athletics, piloting, stealth, skills for ranged weapons and melee weapons, and skills for various areas your character may be knowledgeable in. In some upcoming videos in the series, we're going to talk about character creation and all these skills specifically and what they mean. So if you are excited to see that, go ahead and blast subscribe, and while you're down there, blast the like button if you think this video is going to be helpful. So to explain checks, imagine that you are sitting around your table playing your session of Star Wars RPG, and you tell the GM that you want to climb up a building. The GM could respond with, "Sure, give me a hard athletics check," to which you would grab the needed dice for that and then roll. Don't worry, I'll cover what you would grab and how you would interpret that roll in just a second. But in order to do that, I kind of need to explain the dice themselves first. So I'm going to explain the dice types, the symbols on the dice, and then afterwards how to interpret the dice. The first kind of dice is the white force die. These are primarily used when a force user is trying to activate a force power, such as the Jedi mind trick. Again, we'll cover force powers later on in the series, but this die has white and black circles most players will call pips. There are light side pips and dark side pips. The rest of these dice can be split into good dice and bad dice, and each one has a good and bad counterpart. Let's start with our green ability dice. These represent your character's ability to do something. These work in tandem with the yellow proficiency dice, which are upgrades to the ability die, and these come from the skills that you purchase. The bad counterpart to this is the purple difficulty dice, and its upgrade, the red challenge die. These determine how difficult the check is going to be. Lastly, we have the blue boost die and the black setback die. These will slightly boost or set back your chances of succeeding a check. You can gain boost die or setback die due to narrative reasons within the story. You can also gain boosts and remove setback from your species bonuses, as well as talents that you'll acquire on your talent tree. Again, we'll touch on that in character creation. Now, in your box of dice, you'll also find these little tokens. They're double-sided, they have a light side and a dark side. These are called destiny tokens, and the very next video, we will cover all about how to use these things. Okay, so let's get into the symbols. The good dice only have good symbols, and the bad dice only have bad symbols. And like the dice, each symbol has a good and bad counterpart. And these good and bad symbols will cancel out after you roll. So first, let's talk about success and failure. After canceling out all of the successes and failure with each other, you need at least one success left over to succeed at the check. The more success you are left with, the more successful you are. Maybe you heal more in that medicine check, or maybe you deal more damage when you blast somebody. Now, oppositely, failure does not stack the more failure you have. One failure, 10 failures, a million failures, and 0 success, 0 failure. It's all just you didn't succeed at what you were trying to do. Now, one trick to remember when you're trying to cancel these out and remember the symbols is that success and failures are the spiky, pointy shaped symbols. Next, we have advantage and threat. These are unrelated to whether or not you succeed or fail a check, but instead are additional narrative good stuff or bad stuff that stacks on top of the success or failure. Let's say you're looking for something but fail with advantage. Maybe you don't find that secret lever, but you do find a small stash of credits. Or maybe you succeeded at that mechanics check, but you rolled a couple threats. So let's say you fix up the speeder bike and get it up and running. However, until you have more time to really dedicate to it, its max speed is going to be reduced. It doesn't quite work to its fullest potential yet. Players can also choose to spend their advantage to heal their strain, which is like your mental health bar in a sense. And these will heal at a 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 advantage heals 1 strain. 3 advantage can heal 3 strain. You can spend 1 of your 3 advantage to heal 1 strain and then spend the other 2 advantage to do something else that's cool narratively. And oppositely, GMs can can inflict strain on the player by spending threat, again at a 1-to-1 ratio. Now, one thing that's really neat about advantage in this game is that the players actually get to decide what they want to use their advantage on. And then the GM can determine whether or not what they want to spend their advantage on is actually worth the amount of advantages they're spending. I'll throw some info on screen to showcase some common ways that these are spent. When you're canceling these out though, advantage and threat can be remembered because these are more rounded symbols. Okay, so we have two symbols left, the triumph and the despair. A triumph can only be found on the yellow proficiency dice. It is both one success and one super mega advantage. The player gets a huge helpful narrative thing. If you come from D&D, it's almost like the nat 20. But like the advantage, it doesn't necessarily mean you succeed at the check. You can fail a check with triumph. Maybe you're in a chase scene, escaping a building, and you're trying to hack the computers to unlock your ship from the hangar bay. You fail with triumph. You don't unlock your ship from the hangar bay, but you manage to close all the blast doors between you and your pursuers, which buys your party a good amount of time to try to figure out how to get the ship unlocked. Or maybe you succeed with triumph. You get the parking boot unlocked, as well as you close the blast doors, blocking your pursuers from chasing you, thwarting your GM's plans for ship combat and a chase into space. And like the advantage, the players get the ultimate final decision on what their triumph is used for, again with GM oversight. Now the despair is only found on the red challenge dice. Opposite of the triumph, this is both one failure and one massive negative thing. So going back to our previous example, let's say you succeed with despair. You get your ship boot unlocked, but you hear the scream of 3 TIE interceptors and see them round the corner towards you. And now you have some extra ships you have to deal with on your escape. Or let's say you failed with despair, you don't get your ship undocked, you have people behind you chasing you, and there's 3 TIE interceptors screaming around the corner coming towards you. Uh-oh, y'all trapped. Now, unlike all of the other symbols, triumph and despairs do not cancel out with each other. So if you roll both, you have both a really good major narrative thing and a really bad major narrative thing. One last time with this example, you roll a success with 1 triumph and 1 despair. You get your ship's parking boot unlocked, and you block off all the doors from the people chasing you, but the GM doesn't actually say what the despair is used for because he doesn't want the players to know that the bad guys happen to just plant a tracker on the ship that's going to take a hard check to discover. Okay, so now you know what the dice are, you know what the symbols are. Let's go over how to build your dice pool. Let's go back to that athletics check where you're trying to climb up a building, and the GM said roll a hard athletics check. So you would then look at your athletic skill and the characteristic tied to it, indicated by whatever's in that parentheses. In this case, it's going to be brawn. Now, if your brawn is 3 and your athletics is 1, then you take 3 green ability dice and exchange and upgrade 1 to yellow. You would also roll 2 green and 1 yellow if instead you had 1 brawn and 3 athletics, because the bigger number is how many green ability dice you start with, and the smaller number is how many you upgrade to yellow. As you get the hang of this, you won't actually have to grab 3 green and then exchange 1 out. You'll just know to grab 2 green and 1 yellow. Next, we add difficulty dice. 1 purple dice is an easy check, which this is where most people should succeed with relative ease. 2 is average, and that the average person should generally succeed at the task. 3 is hard, and this is where the average person might actually start failing a bit more consistently. 4 is daunting, which is a great challenge. And 5 is formidable, to where the average person it is nearly impossible to complete. There can be checks with 0 difficulty dice, and these are checks that generally with this task, nobody should ever really fail doing them, but for whatever reason, there's some narrative difficulty to it that's abnormal that may add some setback to the check. Most checks won't have the red challenge dice inherently as part of the pool, but as we continue this video, you'll see how these come into play. So that check was hard. We're gonna grab 3 purple. Lastly, the GM will add any boost or setback that are needed narratively for this check. Maybe it's raining, the wall of the building is kind of slippery. Take 2 setback. However, you recently did a perception check and you found some boxes that can help you out. Take a boost die. Maybe you have some talent that gives you a boost die to athletics check. Take another boost die. Maybe you have a different talent that removes 1 setback from athletics checks. Remove a setback dice. Again, once you get the hang of these dice, you're not actually like doing a whole lot of adding, removing, upgrading, downgrading, all that fun stuff. You'll generally just kind of know what to grab. So then you take your final dice pool and roll. You then cancel out the good and bad symbols, so this success and advantage cancels with this failure and threat. Blanks go away. This success cancels with this threat. So in this check, we rolled 1 success with 2 threat. You successfully climbed that building, but you didn't notice from the ground that there's a stormtrooper up here patrolling. Now you have to figure out how to get past it. Let's do one more example. You're in a blaster fight with some bounty hunters, and you want to take a shot at them with your blaster pistol. You have 3 agility and 3 ranged light, so it's going to be 3 green upgraded to 3 yellow. They're at medium range, which is average difficulty, 2 purple. They took cover, so add 1 setback dice. You want to aim for your maneuver, take a boost die, and then we roll. So these 2 advantage cancel with these 2 threat. This failure cancels with 1 of the success, and we're left with 2 success and a 3 advantage. You dealt 8 damage and you deal a critical injury. Don't worry, again, I'll get more into combat stuff when we hit the combat chapter in chapter 6. As you play, you will see the words upgrading and downgrading come up for rolls a lot. Upgrading is when a green dice gets upgraded to a yellow dice. If there are no more greens to upgrade, then the upgrade adds a green dice. And then another upgrade would exchange that out for a yellow, and so on and so forth until you run out of upgrades. Alternatively, upgrading difficulty takes a purple to a red, then adds a purple, and then replaces that with red, and then adds a purple, and then replaces that with red, until you're out of difficulty upgrades. Now, downgrading rolls is when you go from yellow back down to green, and then back down to green. And then another downgrade would go back down to green. Also, difficulty downgrades would do the same thing. Red becomes purple, another downgrade, red becomes purple, another downgrade, red becomes purple for downgrading difficulty. Once all of your yellow dice have become green dice, you cannot downgrade any further. And the same is true for difficulty dice. Once all of your red have become purple, you can't start removing purple dice. So at that point, you would just discard any more downgrades. I would like to note that upgrading difficulty and increasing the difficulty are not the same thing. Increasing difficulty will add purple dice to the pool. So for example, increase difficulty by 1 until the end of the encounter means you have to add 1 purple dice to all your checks until the end of the fight or encounter. There are also decreases to difficulty that can take away purple dice. Again, decreasing is not downgrading. And there is a priority order to all of this if more than 1 show up in the same check. From the base difficulty of the check, you do all of the increases, then all of the decreases, then all of the upgrades, then all of the downgrades. Now outside of skill checks, there's a couple other kinds of checks that can still come up in your game. The first is the opposed check. This is when the actions of one character directly opposes the actions of another character. Maybe the player is trying to lie to or charm or coerce an NPC. Maybe the player is trying to sneak past that stormtrooper without getting spotted. For our example, let's say the player is trying to charm a guard. The player would roll their charm check, but this time instead of a set difficulty by the GM, it's based on the guard's cool. The guard has 2 presence and 1 cool, which means if the guard was to roll cool, it would be 1 yellow and 1 green. So for the player doing the opposed check, that translates to 1 red and 1 purple. Here's a list on screen of all the skills that actually oppose each other. If a player is trying to roll coercion, deception, or leadership, they would roll against another character's discipline. Charm is going to be opposed by cool, and negotiation can be opposed by either negotiation or cool. Next are competitive checks. This is when characters are trying to compete with one another. The GM will set the difficulty, and the players will all roll the same check against the same difficulty. Whoever has the most success wins. Ties are going to be broken by triumph, then ties again are going to be broken by advantages, and then if it's still a tie, then it's just a tie. That said, advantages and triumphs here can still give cool narrative effects. Same with despairs and threat. Last but not least, we have the assisted check. This happens when a character is trying to assist another character, and this breaks down into 2 different kinds of assistance: skilled assistance and unskilled assistance. Skilled assistance is when you actually have the skills to help somebody. In this example, player 1 is a Wookiee with 4 brawn and 1 athletics. He wants to climb a wall. Player 2 is a human with 2 brawn and 2 athletics. In skilled assistance, you can lend your skill or characteristic to the other person for the check. In our example, the Wookiee has the higher brawn, but the human has the higher athletics. So the Wookiee will roll his brawn with the human's athletics instead of his own, meaning he has 4 green and 2 are upgraded to yellow. If the roles were reversed and the Wookiee was helping the human would roll the Wookiee's 4 brawn and his own athletics 2. Let's say the Wookiee had 4 brawn and 3 athletics and the human had 2 and 2. The Wookiee can only lend the human 1 of the characteristics or skill. Unskilled assistance is when both your skill and characteristic are below or equal to the person you're assisting. In this case, you would just simply grant a single boost die to their check. Goes without saying, but assistance has to make sense narratively. Also, most of the time only one player can assist unless the GM deems it a situation where multiple people could help. I hope this video was super helpful for you. If it was, please do me a favor, go down, blast the like button. It's quick, it's free, it's easy. If you want to see more videos in this beginner's guide series, series, you can hit subscribe. More will be coming very soon. And if you have any questions, comment them down below. I do my best to try to answer every single question. Next, we dive into Destiny tokens. Click the video on the screen to go check that out. If you want to see all of the rules of this game in action, check out our very first actual play called Dark Underworld. It is on the screen as well. Huge thanks to our Patreon supporters. Your support means the world and it makes such a huge difference, and we are so appreciative of you. Thanks to everybody for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video, but until then, and as always, may the Force be with you.